Oh my God, do we have a lot to talk about. Hello everyone, and this is going to be a special spoilery discussion review of Frozen 2. I've already seen the movie a couple times, and there is so much to talk about, so much to break down. It's been a long time since I've done a spoilery discussion of a movie, so I figured this is a great opportunity to talk about the many different things that stood out to me for the movie, the many things that I loved, a couple things that didn't work for me, but really just taking the time to break this movie down. So if you haven't seen Frozen 2 just yet and you don't want to be spoiled, please go watch something else. Go watch my non-spoiler review. I will link that down below because we are going to get into some very heavy spoiler territory. And there is your one and only warning. So here we go. We're going to jump right on in, and we are going to start by talking about Elsa, and specifically my favorite part of the movie. And for those of you who've seen the movie, it shouldn't be a surprise to you that it is the section, the 10 to 15 minute section where she battles the water elemental horse, and takes command of it, and then transitions into her second song, Show Yourself, and her second transformation. But upon listening to both songs, when comparing Into the Unknown to Show Yourself, both are great songs, but I gotta say, Show Yourself is the showstopper of the entire movie. Show Yourself is the let it go of Frozen 2. I actually love this song more than Into the Unknown. Into the Unknown, you know, they're both great, but Show Yourself just keeps climbing and climbing, and then it just explodes in the greatest way. Like, it's so big, it's so grand, but it's also so very emotional. So this is like the peak of, or the climax of Elsa's entire character journey, going all the way back to Frozen 1. I truly believe that Show Yourself is finally Elsa fully embracing who she is, what her true destiny is, where she's meant to be. This is the moment, and they did not hold back. Oh my God. So let's talk about all the visuals. You know, we start with, you know, that very, very iconic teaser trailer scene of Elsa on the beach, and that's where she's trying to get somewhere. So she, and this transitions into the battle with Knock the water horse. This was so incredibly very well visualized, very well choreographed. I felt the tension, and I loved that Elsa had to battle this water elemental horse and conquer it in order to venture forward. Let's jump ahead towards the climax of the song, where she enters into this ice chamber that reveals a dome, and it's like a dome of memories. And you see, that's when she realizes that her mother was a siren calling all that time, and you see the flashback of her mother as a child saving her father, Elsa fully realizing that she is the fifth spirit, that this is her true destiny, this is where she belongs. Her mother's line, "Come, my darling, homeward bound," seeing Elsa look up at her mother, seeing the tears swell up in her eyes, tears of happiness, that moment of fully realizing your destiny and that you've made it. And this is it. And this is what you were meant for your entire life. I got chills. I got teary-eyed. And when she belts out that line, "I am found," which just triggers her full transformation, revealing her final amazing look. And we'll talk about that in a second. It really was brilliant character, a brilliant character moment, brilliant storytelling. And then when they reveal Elsa's final look, like, wow, holy shit, if there was, as if it was impossible to top the Let It Go gown, they went there with Show Yourself and revealing, she is like goddess incarnate. Like, holy hell, like you gave us the ultimate queen for gays to love. I just put it out there. She looks beautiful. And then we reach a very, very significant plot point, the reveal that her grandfather was the one who decided to betray and turn on the Northuldra, and that he was the one that essentially angered the spirits of the Enchanted Forest and created the conflict that we're presented with for the entirety of the film. I really thought that was a very clever turn, in that it was their grandfather who was corrupt. I will say, though, that though it was a really good reveal, It could have used a little bit more time to explain. It did feel very fleeting. And I think with just a little bit more time to sit on them and a little bit more time for our characters to react to them, the impact would have been that much more powerful and less like a fleeting moment. And that's what this scene kind of felt. It's like, if you weren't fully paying attention, you walk away from the movie. It's one of those scenes to be like, oh yeah, she did see her grandfather in that memory, talk to that person about doing this. Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. It's that quick, and that's, one of the few little nitpicks I do have over the movie. But overall, I did like that narrative plot point that it was their grandfather that eventually caused all of this to happen. But for the sake of time, we will move on to my next favorite character, but then talking about some of her best moments, and that is Anna. So Elsa, hands down, as always, and forever will be my favorite, but Anna had some great moments in this movie. I will say, just to get out of the way, I had one qualm with Anna the entire movie, and that is she's kind of, I don't want to say she doesn't give two shits about Kristoff, but she kind of, doesn't give two shits about Kristoff in this movie. Yes, the movie had a purpose, and that was to tell the full circle tale and the bookend of the arcs of Anna and Elsa as sisters and their relationship and their journey and where they ultimately end up. But with Anna, I did have a bit of a qualm in that, she really didn't care too much about Kristoff's well-being, especially in the second half. Once, she found out that Elsa died and then Olaf died. We'll talk about those soon, but her realizing she has no one, I don't know. I kind of wish okay, you technically still have Kristoff. The story only had so much time to tell what was going on. And quite frankly, I don't care a whole lot about Kristoff, so I forgive this narrative flaw. But besides that, her song, The Next Right Thing, yes, Anna only gets one solo song, but oh my God, this was some of the best animated acting I've ever seen, because the song gets very, very dark. I mean, it starts with her holding Olaf as he's dying because Elsa has died. And so since Olaf is a product of Elsa's creation, and with her death comes the death of Olaf, and Anna's just holding her dying friend. And then the next shot is her just, holding an empty bag because he's completely, I don't want to say disintegrated, but melted or became snow flurries and flurried off into nothingness. And she's there just in tears in this cave, dark and alone. And seeing her expression, seeing the tears swelling, I could see the heartbreak on her face in the animation. I give them credit for writing such a dark ballad for one of our Disney heroines, because one of my favorite lyrics that Anna says in this moment is, her experiencing, I've had dark before, but not like this. It's cold, it's empty, it's numb. But then my favorite lyric is, hello darkness, I'm ready to succumb. As I'm hearing that, coming from one of our arguably happiest Disney princesses they've ever introduced to us, I was like, fuck. I give them major, major kudos for having the balls to go there with this dark ballad. Yes, it turns around and it finds its inspirational side, and it's the kind of, pick yourself up kind of song. But that moment, it kind of gives me chills when I hear it. I will say one qualm I did have, mini nitpick qualm I had with this scene, was how they found out about Elsa and Anna's grandfather being the one. Elsa, as she finds out about this memory of her grandfather, when she released that memory of the grandfather as kind of like an SOS call out to Anna as Elsa freezes and dies. And so that memory finds Anna and Olaf in the cave, and it manifests and it shows the memory of the grandfather and the treachery that he does commit. And that's how Anna puts the pieces together of what happened with the Nitholdra, her grandfather, and that Olaf's death is a sign of Elsa's dying. It was a lot of plot that Anna and Olaf kind of figured out with just that one little memory. It was a lot of acceptance and a lot of, this is how it is, and this is what's happening to everybody, with very little exploration that this is actually the case. So minor nitpick, I know they had to keep the movie moving along, but then after Anna's song, after it's completed, building to that climax of the dam and the decision that she makes in having to destroy the dam to, to flood over Arendelle in order to sort of apologize for her ancestors' wrongdoing over the Enchanted Forest. I really did love that entire sequence. The action was fantastic. The suspense was real, and with the rock giants and everything, I thought it really, really played very well. My next favorite, I guess, takeaway from the movie was Anna and Elsa's true destinies, with Anna being the new queen of Arendelle because Elsa's rightful place is, queen of Northuldra, queen of the North, I don't know, the fifth spirit. They both have their callings, and I do love that realization that their parents were from two rival tribes, from the Northuldra in the Enchanted Forest, to Arendelle, mother and father, having two daughters, and to sort of bridge the gap and bring peace to both realms. I really loved that. It really felt full circle, and it gave purpose to Anna. Not that she needed purpose, but I mean, Elsa is pretty fucking cool compared to Anna, but I do love that they did bring that together to where Anna is needed, and she is essential, and she is important in her own right, in her own role, and I loved that ending of the two queens. We now have two queens in the Disney Princess lineup, everyone, and their ultimate destinies as two queens ruling and bridging the gap between, the Enchanted Forest and Arendelle. So those are my favorite, biggest takeaways from the movie, from Elsa, Anna to their destinies. But I also want to talk about some other favorite moments of mine. The first of being Elsa riding the wave to save Arendelle from the breaking of the dam. Wow, that was a huge, fantastic moment for Elsa. I absolutely loved it. Other favorite moments include Elsa and Anna's the discovery of their parents' ship, and ultimately seeing that very haunting ice sculpture of their parents moments before their death and about to be consumed. I am glad that their parents weren't brought back to life. There was a moment that I was getting kind of nervous about Disney kind of doing a little bit of a cop-out and either having both or one of them still be alive. I guess specifically their mother. It would have lessened the impact of that scene had one or both of them been alive, so I do appreciate that the parents did stay dead. But that dark moment of them on their ship and seeing that ice sculpture of moments before their death, it was dark and it was just so rich, and I felt the emotional impact it made, on those two girls seeing a visual of the death of their parents. And the next favorite scene is Into the Unknown. This was a great, mysterious, but beautiful song that sets the tone of the rest of the movie. I did say in my non-spoiler review that Into the Unknown, it wasn't quite as epic as Let It Go in terms of visuals. It was still beautiful, and I still enjoyed the moment very much so, but once Show Yourself came up on screen, I'm like, wait, what was that other song Elsa sang? And then my next favorite scene was the introduction of Bruni, the little tiny gecko fire spirit. This was also a great showcase of Elsa's powers, but then I also loved the element of Anna trying to step in, Elsa playing tag with Bruni. It was just a great moment of tension in introducing the fire spirit through a moment of perpetual danger. Another scene I loved was Olaf's recap of the first Frozen and watching Matthias's reaction. Oh my God, that was priceless. It was hilarious. I loved seeing him get so involved. And so when Olaf is saying about the turn of Huns being evil, and Matthias is like, oh, and then Anna dying, Matthias is like, oh my God. It was so funny. It was so fucking funny. And that whole scene with Olaf and his recap of the story and Matthias's reactions, they got arguably the biggest laughs in the entire theater, and they were very, very well earned. And then finally, another favorite scene of mine was Kristoff's song, Lost in the Woods. I did love the sort of 80s, 90s montage ballad song that they gave him. It was so funny. Now, in talking about Kristoff, yeah, his only plot this entire movie is how to propose to Anna. I found his plot, actually, pretty cute. And even though he was pretty much useless in the movie, like I said, I care way more about Anna and Elsa, and those two girls had so much to do in this movie that I'm actually okay that Kristoff didn't really get to do anything else. Now we're going to talk about the new characters now, and so this is where I start to have a few more issues with how certain characters are introduced and underutilized. But before we get to those characters, I do want to give a shout out. My favorite new characters were definitely the creatures of the Enchanted Forest. You have Bruni, you have Gale, the wind spirit, and then of course Nock or Noak. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but that's obviously the water spirit horse. I loved all of those creatures, and I felt like they put the most effort into getting you to really care about those whimsical creatures, and I really, really, really enjoyed them. But I did have issues with the human characters. There were, a number of them introduced. They became friends with our existing characters, in my opinion, way too quickly. They really established right at the forefront that the Netholdra and the Arendelle soldiers are our enemies. But then why is Matthias sipping, I don't know, tea or a hot beverage with Anna and all of them at camp that night? And then they never really show where the Arendelle soldiers are holding up camp or where they live. And then also, I guess my biggest issue with this issue is that there's no love whatsoever for Yelena as her character. This was a prime opportunity in introducing Yelena, in my opinion, to explore Elsa and Anna's their mother's past. And Yelena is older, so one could argue, what is there a relative relation to Yelena? Or Yelena, saw their mother grow up as a child or something. Again, there were not enough scenes to really explore these two rival groups, and the friendships formed way too quickly. I feel like between the Arendelle soldiers and the Netholdra, we could have used a council type scene or something where all the characters are together discussing what's to be done next with these strangers that came into the Enchanted Forest. It was all just very, very quick, and they were all like comrades or colleagues or friends very, very quickly within 5 lines. My favorite new character of the humans, however, is definitely Matthias, played brilliantly by Sterling K. Brown. He definitely had the most to work with his character that actually made me like him, but the others really, really were completely sidelined. Now, this movie could have supported a 2-hour runtime and give it 15 extra minutes in the middle when they introduce these new characters. Maybe add a song with these new characters, like a campfire song. They did have their circular, the song where they formed in a circle and they sing the main na 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 hey ya na. Like, okay, first of all, kudos, finally, that's where that song comes from. That's kind of just random, tribal chanting in the very first Frozen that really doesn't play at all into any of the songs for the rest of the movie. Now it makes sense. Now we know where that melody and that type of music came from. I appreciated that. I think we could have used more of a big song number or something in the middle, just like filler scenes with the Netholdra and the Arendelle soldiers, just to care about them a little bit more. Now, one thing I did mention earlier on in talking about the reveal of Anna and Elsa's grandfather being the main villain and that it felt very fleeting, there were a number of fleeting moments in this movie. And this is where I had my little qualms sprinkled throughout because I want to talk about a handful of moments that felt like they went a bit too quickly through the narrative and went on to the next scene without spending maybe as much time as they could have. One fleeting moment is the mother and father statue, the revelation that their mother saved their father as a kid. I felt like that should have been more of an important moment of the girls realizing that the person who saved their father back in the day during the attack was their mother. It just felt very quick. The next moment was obviously the grandfather reveal that he was the evil one. We've already talked about that. And then also the reason to destroy the bridge when Anna realizes that that's kind of the way that she has to remedy the mistakes made by their grandfather is destroy the bridge and therefore release the dam. Her logic in getting there and realizing that the bridge and the dam were created ultimately to be used as a setup to kill and conquer the Netholdra and therefore angering the spirits. I feel like Anna's realization of all of this was kind of quick. It all makes sense, but I think spending a little bit more time on getting to those conclusions would have helped a little bit more. For the most important parts of the movie, the most important plot points involving Elsa and Anna's progression and transformation, they are executed tremendously, and if not perfectly. Number one, Elsa and Anna learning more about their parents and really giving us a reason to care about their parents and what ultimately happens to them, but also learning a little bit more about their history, and then ultimately seeing the connection where it all leads with Elsa, and then her realization with her mom. I felt like those were huge payoff moments. Elsa's journey and self-discovery, like we've talked about, the payoff and screen time that we deserve for such a complex character introduced from the first one. I felt like that was a huge payoff for all of us. Also, Anna's maturity and her growth into being more independent and being more of a leader. I thought that was a huge payoff for the character. The destinies of the two sisters, like we talked about, the symbolism of the two sides of the bridge and becoming queens of their own land, growing stronger even while apart, but still there for one another. And then giving us such a rich world of magic with enchanting elemental creatures. It felt like a much bigger world outside of Arendelle, which they executed, I think, fantastically. It made me want to explore even more of the world. Frozen 3? That's all I'm saying. And finally, the biggest payoff, the biggest takeaway that honestly kind of canceled out a lot of my qualms, or a lot of my little tiny qualms with the movie, was sticking the landing, the ending. From Anna with the rock giants to Elsa riding the wave to save Arendelle, the reunion on the beach, Elsa resurrecting Olaf. I love her little comeback line of, "Do you want to build a snowman?" I thought that was perfectly timed. It was a callback to one of their first ever songs in the first movie. And then Anna becoming queen, the revealing of the statue of their parents uniting the two clans, and then finally Elsa staying up north and literally riding into the sunset on her steed with the music swelling. Oh my God, this ending was triumphant. It was powerful, and it didn't feel rushed. It felt complete, and it was inspirational. I was on a cloud when it was over. All of these, these moments I've just talked about were arguably the most important story elements this movie needed to get right, and it exceeded my expectations in spades in all of the areas that I had just previously mentioned. And with how satisfying these payoffs and these moments are, it's easier for me to forgive most of the imperfections along the way. Yeah, it's not as perfect as, like, say, Zootopia or Tangled, not quite there, but it was so many steps above the first Frozen, and it left me excited. I'd love to see what they could do with a Frozen 3. With what they did with Frozen 2, let's go even further and see where this can go. I was excited to discuss a number of these points about this movie. And so, go to town. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Frozen 2. I'd love to hear, what are your favorite scenes? What are some of your favorite moments? Feel free to share those down below. Thank you all again for sitting down and letting me talk about all of this. And until next time, I'm Ryan Boehme, signing off. Bye, everyone.